Quaker Book of Wisdom by Robert Lawrence Smith. Chapter 3. Truth. If we hope to be guided by an inner light, by an inner voice of truth, how do we distinguish this true voice among the chorus of internal voices that call out to us? The voices of self-interest, of vanity, of selfish pleasure. If a man feels compelled to leave his wife and children to pursue a personal vision of fulfillment, is this the voice of truth calling to him? If a person is infatuated with the pleasures of food, drink and gambling and devotes most of his waking hours and disposable income to these pursuits, is this his true nature speaking? The answer, I believe, lies in George Fox's sublimely optimistic vision of human nature. If there is that of God in every person, then truth is the best that there is in each of us, the part of us that is naturally drawn towards the good, towards God. If we listen for the truth, for the best that is within us, then our lives will begin to speak the truth. As George Fox said, truth comes from within. It is the basis for daily life, like the food we eat. Our most readily available tools for distinguishing the truth in our daily lives is common sense. Like truth, common sense may be hard to define, but we recognize it when we see it. We call it common because it's shared by all. In the same way that we know the difference between right and wrong, between good and evil, we are each endowed with the capacity to apprehend the truth about ourselves and about the world around us. As self-proclaimed publishers of the truth, 17th century friends announced to all who would listen, the truth is the way and the way is the truth. And in this focus on truth, in all its aspects, has remained central to Quaker worship and Quaker life. Truth, Quakers believe, restores our souls and empowers our actions. Truth is our guide, and truth is our liberator. Quakers often quote the Apostle John, who condensed the message eloquently when he proclaimed, "The truth shall set you free." It's a radical concept, but Quakers have always embraced it as a reality. The truth will make us free, free from meaninglessness, free from lovelessness, free from the emptiness and frustrations of egocentricity. The search for truth is central to a meaningful life, but it is not as simple as adhering to a prescribed ideology. Each Quaker meeting involves everyone who tends in search for truth, and belief in vocal ministry as a counterpart to silent worship and as an instrument of continuing revelation remains basic to Quakerism. Friends hold that one can find truth and new insights at each meeting for worship. Each meeting for business, held monthly to address practical concerns ranging from repairing the meeting house roof to drafting a letter of protest to a congressman to meeting finances, and in life generally. It is an interactive process that requires openness, diligence, and discipline in equal measure. The search for truth is a lifelong pact with our inner lives that encompasses seeking the truth, recognizing the truth, speaking the truth, and living the truth, which is to say, letting our lives speak. Quakers also search for truth through a device known as the query. Queries such as, do we really observe simplicity and honesty in everyday life, or our love and harmony within the meeting community fostered by a spirit of sharing, are designed to prick the conscience and prompt both group and individual self-examination. A query is like a burr under the saddle of the soul. Although queries have varied through time and from one area of the country to another, they invariably focus on helping meetings and individual friends conduct their spiritual and temporal lives in accordance with their religious beliefs. Specific queries may be revisited from time to time within a Quaker community, evoking quite different responses. Meetings for business are conducted in the same spirit as meetings for worship. In fact, these meetings are officially referred to as a meeting for worship with a concern to business. Many meetings for business begin with the reading of queries such as, are meetings for business held in a spirit of worship, understanding and forbearance? Is the meeting aware that it speaks not only through its actions, but also through its failure to act? Following the reading of the query, there is usually a substantial period of silence. The clerk then shuffles his or her papers, signifying it's time to take up the business the meeting Words and actions take place when the group's discussion has resulted in a sense of the meeting. When the clerk, with careful and sensitive discernment, finds that the meeting is clear about the matter at hand. This non-voting process is often slow, but Quakers believe that clearness can be found in the group's patient search for answers, through careful listening and through speaking from the heart. In reaching a sense of the meeting, everyone present shares in its result. For friends, the process of reaching a decision is as important as the decision itself. When very contentious subjects are being discussed and vehement disagreements arise, the clerk may ask for a period of silence, which can become quite lengthy, to give people a chance to seek divine guidance and to try to see the subject in a new way. Many of the subjects discussed are not nearly as weighty as this description might indicate. A question addressed periodically at my meeting, for example, is whether young children should attend the first 15 minutes of meeting or the last. The Religious Education Committee has recommended the former course, but after considerable discussion it has become clear that there is no sense of the meeting about which would serve the children's and the meeting's interests best. So the subject is carried over to the next meeting for business and the next, and will continue to be discussed until the sense of the meeting is reached. The collective search after truth, as practiced in meetings for worship and meetings for business, flies in the face of the more romantic vision of an individual's solitary search. But the individual and the group search are not mutually exclusive, because the search for truth is not restricted to meeting. Every day of our lives is another journey down the path of truth. We cannot withdraw from the process of living while we make up our minds how to live. All we can do is move forward, guided by whatever inner light we can find to show us the way. Quakers believe that if the truth is the way and the way is the truth, then a key to finding one's way in the world is the deceptively simple act of speaking the truth. We live, however, in a society where it is virtually taken for granted that many of the people we are listening to are not telling the truth. We distrust the words of politicians, business people, the press, advertisers, you name it. Most public discourse is suffocated by rhetoric in the service of an effect and argumentation that insults the thought in the service of a chosen conclusion. Facts and truth often seem to be incidental and accidental. In this climate of cynicism, how can we embrace the Quaker message that, despite the complexity of modern life, we must be true to our best selves? How shall we act on information that we suspect is not true? How do we teach our children the importance of integrity and also arm them against blind acceptance of false claims and information? The question might reasonably ask, what is the value of truth-telling, and why should we bother to continue to teach it to our children? Is telling the truth, after all, just a quaint anachronism that has outlived its usefulness? No, not at all. Friends are practical people, and when they speak of truth-telling, they are referring to a concept that has profound pragmatic implications. Think of truthful speech as the bridge between the silent search after truth and letting your life speak. If you speak the truth, you will be true to yourself, to that which is best in you. Speaking the truth is the first step towards letting your life speak in a way that is honest and authentic. Speaking the truth is so central to Quaker belief that Quakers have always refused to take oaths. Since they are expected to tell the truth at all times, they reject the idea that there are two standards of truth, one for everyday concerns and one for the courtroom. There are many stories about the reluctance of friends to shade the truth in any way. One is about a farmer who walked down the road and saw a shorn sheep in a field. When asked if the sheep he saw was shorn, he replied, well, certainly he was shorn on the side facing the road. Others concern the more significant matter of Quakers who participated in the Underground Railroad. When asked if any runaway slaves were being sheltered on his property, a friend did not lie when he replied, there are no slaves here, because his belief was that no human being could be a slave. Other Quakers brought food and money to runaway slaves in total darkness, so if they were asked whether they'd seen any runaway Negroes, they could truthfully respond in the negative. I had a cousin who used to reply regularly to the casual comment, that's funny, with an emphatic, it's first Quaker president attended the Friends meeting in Washington. Nixon never showed up, and that's the least of it. We're horrified and continues to bring shame on his co-religionists, whether they be Republicans, Democrats, Liberals, Conservatives, has less to do with Nixon's domestic or foreign policy or actions than with the unarguable fact that he did not tell the truth. Plato told us more than 2,000 years ago that truth is the beginning of every good thing, both in heaven and on earth. And he who would be blessed and happy should be from the first a partaker of truth, for then he can be trusted. The prick of conscience that comes with the violation of truth is a reminder that integrity is the first principle in life, a principle all of us want to instill in our children, not only out of some vague sense of morality, but for the most practical reasons as well. Our ability to trust one another in love, in business, in every arena of life, can only be based on a mutual commitment to honesty. Experience has taught me that, quite aside from high-flown issues of morality, truth-telling simplifies life. Again, the litmus test of pragmatism. The person who makes a practice of telling the truth does not need to confront each small situation with the question, shall I speak the truth? Shall I say I bought something in this store and get them to stamp my parking ticket? Shall I say I have the flu and spend the day at the ballpark instead of the office? Lying burdens and complicates life. It gets us into trouble. It undermines relationships, and lies can be hard to remember. The questions, what did I say to her about it? What reason did I give when I told them I wasn't coming into work? What excuse did I give for not going to her party? Do not trouble or confuse people who consistently tell the truth. If we are resolved to tell the truth, even when it is inconvenient to do so, we are relieved of a guilty conscience and the fear of being found out. Telling the truth simply feels better. And yet, making commitment to truth is frightening to many people. We fear exposing ourselves to others. We are afraid that our truth-telling will make people angry or lay us open to ridicule. If we can no longer hide behind falsehoods, then we must live with the truth, which can indeed appear as an unsettling alternative. What happens if I can't make up false excuses for not doing what I don't want to do? What happens if I can't cover up my actions with a little white lie? I would make the case for taking the Apostle John's teaching literally. The truth can set us free. There is nothing so liberating as simply speaking the truth from your heart. Nothing so empowering as believing in what you say and in having others perceive you as truthful. Think how much we all respect and value the honest opinion of our closest friends and confidants. Consider how hungry we all are for public figures who dare to tell the truth and act on their own true beliefs. It takes courage to tell the truth, and when one person takes that leap of faith, it gives strength to all of us. Having said all this, truth-telling inevitably presents its own dilemmas. I realise that it's difficult to be dogmatic about truth-telling, because in some instances telling the whole truth and nothing but the truth can be ruthless, unfeeling and destructive. The truth is like the North Star, it points the way. But Quakers often discover an incompatibility between two compelling beliefs, that we should unswervingly tell the truth and that we should always love others. The problem with speaking out totally truthfully in a family is that it so often conflicts with love. Telling a fragile and frightened spouse or parent every detail of the doctor's dire news, for instance, is not the sort of truth-telling that is helpful to anyone. Telling a child who enjoys playing the piano that she hasn't much talent is hurtful and destructive. And if your host asks if you enjoyed the dinner, the answer is always yes. It's been said that if everyone blurted out the truth about everyone else, there wouldn't be two friends left in the world. Speaking your true feelings in a close working community can also be counterproductive. In the 60s, there was a strong sense among younger faculty members at Sidwell Friends School, where I was headmaster, that there should be no dissembling in faculty meetings, that everyone should be absolutely truthful about his or her feelings, even if that meant speaking insensitively to a colleague. If the collegiality they observed was dependent on hypocrisy, they believed it was essentially dishonest. In fact, their in-your-face candor it so unquakerly that some of the senior teachers stopped participating in faculty meetings. I found I needed to vigorously defend civility and remind my truth-to-costs colleagues that, as we often told the students, the important thing is to put the group first. Only by being supportive of one another can we learn to work together. One of the paradoxes of running a Quaker school is that expression of individual conviction lies at the heart of Quakerism, and yet the good of the school cannot be sacrificed to any one individual's convictions, however deeply held. In speaking the truth, there are no absolutes, no perfect answers. My personal rule is to tell the truth, unless doing so is likely to cause serious harm. I find this one of the easiest rules to adhere to. If we aspire to be true to ourselves, we must know our personal boundaries, and maintaining a code of truth-telling is a good start. The philosopher Immanuel Kant said that in regard to truth-telling, we should be more forgiving of others' shortcomings and more demanding of our own. But whatever our personal rules may be, they remain individual parameters that only we can draw. What does this mean in our daily lives? Lives in which we're confronted with a host of decisions that may lead to the most trivial or the most grave consequences. Recently, a woman asked my advice about a situation that had led her to some painful self-examination. The action that worried her was trivial, but the implications troubled her conscience. On a recent birthday, her mother-in-law gave her a bottle of perfume, a gift she received in the presence of her young daughter with a false demonstration of enthusiasm, since it was a scent she was familiar with and didn't particularly like. A week later, she decided to use the expensive fragrance as a gift for a woman she and her daughter were visiting with overnight in another city. She warned her daughter not to mention to the hostess that it had been given to her by her grandma. She explained that, in fact, she had more perfume than she could use, something grandma couldn't have known, and that her friend liked this particular scent. When the friend opened the gift and thanked her warmly, the little girl shot her mother a look of shy complicity, and the mother felt a strong pang of uneasiness. "You're a Quaker," she said to me. "I don't know, Quakers always tell the truth. Did I really do something terribly wrong, or is this harmless sort of lying okay?" The fact that she asked the question indicated that her conscience had already given her the answer, and that some harm had resulted. The simple and consoling response from me would have been that no one was injured by a deception, that the friend would enjoy the gift, and her mother-in-law would never find out or suffer hurt feelings. But another consequence of her action was that she was implicitly teaching her daughter by example that mum considered lying okay. The Quaker message to my grandchildren, who will grow up in wonder and delight and only slowly discover that the world is indifferent and often hostile to their expectations and dreams, is this: life is not a problem that can be solved. It must be lived each day, and each day brings a jumble of choices and challenges. A jumble of choices that challenge our practical wisdom, our common sense, and our yearning for truth. Your choices in life are enormous. They come at you in battalions. You've been learning from the cradle that it's important to be good at something: maths, music, spelling, sports. Remember also to pay attention to the Spirit's first command: to be good at life. Truth seems to speak to us continually and insistently through our conscience, but we also hear other messages from deep within, and one of the most urgent is to be true to yourself, to be you. Growing up, I was very good at figuring out what kind of person others expected me to be, and sometimes these expectations were the opposite of who I really was. Sometimes I still feel as if my life is a struggle between these two me's. I think this ongoing contest of my soul helps keep me, in some strange way, morally fit. That the conflict is something God intended when He made us a little lower than the angels, creatures who must contend with all the conflicts in our nature, the core of which is truth. The best way to discover truth is to pay attention to our hearts. Life experiences, particularly our own sufferings and those of people closest to us, exercise our hearts and increase our wisdom. The heart, wrote the French philosopher René Pascal, has its reasons, which reason knows nothing of. The search for truth is equally available to all people. Living in each of us is a seed of the divine, an inner light of truth. Although it's there, we must turn towards this light and acknowledge its power to illuminate our path. All we need is simplicity of spirit, silence, and an atmosphere in which to center down without distraction. Think of it as the same light that has guided people like you throughout the ages. We cannot be true to anything if we are not true to ourselves, to our inner light. Quakers like to spell the noun truth with a capital T, to emphasize its significance. Yet they also believe that truth merely as a concept is powerless. It only has relevance when the word is married to deeds. Remember that when we speak about truth, we're not talking about mathematical truth. We're talking about knowledge that we can only find for ourselves. Our lives are so busy that it's difficult for us to take the time to seek truth. We're too engaged in keeping up, getting by, moving through the daily routine and amusing ourselves. But reminders can come at any moment during the day. Something in you says, wait a second, is this the me that I want to be? And during that momentary illumination, you will find your answer. The poet Walt Whitman astutely defined truth as whatever satisfies the soul. The query, what satisfies the soul, can help us distinguish things we truly desire from those that merely attract us. We can be attracted by and to and stimulated by many things. By power, by beauty, by things that are new and different. But our soul is only satisfied, our spirit's only nourished by the truth.